businesses. So you're welcome to watch the video for that. We will have we'll have a proclamation starting off today about Booktober, the Booktoberfest. Then we'll have a small consent agenda with 2 items, and then we will have a time for general public comment. I have a few names signed up for general public comment, and then there's also a sign up there for others if you're still coming in. We will also have public comment on any of the items on our regular agenda, and those would be items 4.1 through 4.3. If anyone would like an agenda, they're available close to the door. So in terms of our general public comment, when we get to that point, we invite any comment not on for topics that are not on our agenda, but related to county business. First, we call on folks that are here in person, and then we'll see if there's anyone online who would like to offer public comment. There are 3 minutes for each of those folks, and Sarah will help keep us on track if need be. All public comments should be directed to the commission. Campaigning for public office is not allowed. We do reserve the right to mute or remove any speaker who is vulgar, rude, or inappropriate. The public should also know that the comments that are received by the commission during these meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government. If you use any visual aids while presenting, people will not be able to see those unless they have a computer screen or a smartphone. All of the materials are published online for you to review. And lastly, the recording of this meeting will be available on our YouTube page and our website. With that, we'll move into our proclamation. And I will read through this. And then do we have someone here from the public library that would also like to speak? Okay, we'll have you up right after we read this. So this is a proclamation for Booktoberfest, September 19th through November 8th, 2023. Whereas Booktoberfest is Lawrence Public Library's biggest event of the year for adult readers, brought together by a shared love of books and stories, we will celebrate with 8 weeks of events, including a book the community is invited to read together. Now in its 3rd year, Booktoberfest events commence on September 19th and will close on November 8th. And whereas in 2023, Booktoberfest features a community read for adults, the classic epistolary novel, Dracula by Bram Stoker. Dracula, while residing in the horror genre, has within its Gothic heart themes of identity and foreignness, gender and sexuality, modernization, light versus dark, religion, madness, monstrosity, and more. And whereas together with the Lawrence Public Library's Friends and Foundation, the University of Kansas Libraries, and the Raven Bookstore, the Lawrence Public Library will host activities around Lawrence and at the library that celebrate and promote adult reading. And whereas the Lawrence Public Library encourages the pursuit of a community coming together around a shared love of reading and a shared book with the commitment to exploring the themes and concepts through entertaining, thought-provoking, and conversation-starting programs. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Douglas County, Kansas is hereby proclaiming September 19th through November 8th, 2023 as Booktoberfest in Douglas County, adopted this 13th day of September, 2023. And if you'd come and present to us, that would be great.
Okay. Hi, I would like to thank the commissioners for the opportunity to speak about our Booktoberfest 2023 celebrations, and I brought you some books. The festivities kick off next Tuesday with the Booktoberfest and Dracula Daily launch party on September 19th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Lawrence Arts Center. Matt Kirkland will launch his eagerly anticipated book and share stories from the immensely popular Dracula Daily project. Copies of Bram Stoker's Dracula, our selected Booktoberfest community read title, will be available while supplies last. If you didn't already register for this one, I'm sorry, it is full, but there is a wait list that you can get on. And we'll also have 20 titles for 7-day checkout at the library, and the ebook and digital audiobook will be immediately available for Lawrenceans to participate right away. So for the rest of Booktoberfest, we'd love to have you join us for our celebration of freedom to read during Banned Book Week, which is October 1st through 7th, for screenings and discussions of the movie Blackula and Dracula's Daughter, for our huge adults-only scavenger hunt in the library, Haunted Stacks, on October 20th, for visits from 3 best-selling authors, for book club speed dating on November 1st, and for our final wrap-up on November 8th with Professor Giselle Anatole and company. as we sink our teeth into global vampire lore and offer some reflections on Dracula. And those puns were intended. Yes, they were. I've brought copies of Dracula for each of you. Well, there's 5, so everyone else will have to scramble for them. And then there is a QR code on the bookmarks that will take you to links to register to all the events. You can always find those on our website as well. So thank you again.
Thank you. Here. I'll give these to you.
Have a good day.
All right, thank you for that. We now have our consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda, either 2.1 or 2.2, that any member of the audience would like to pull for further discussion? Seeing none, Sarah, are there any online? No. All right. I should have asked, would any commissioners like to pull an item? And I forgot to acknowledge, sorry, Commissioner Kelly is joining us remotely, so he is on Zoom with us, but thank you for being here.
Commissioner Reed, I move to approve consent agenda items 2.1 and 2.2.
Commissioner Kelly, second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now we have a time for general public comment. I have a list of names up here. Can we start with Eamon Campbell? Can come up and give 3 minutes of comment.
Hello, today I'm going to talk about health risks and proposed setbacks of industrial wind turbines. So thank you for your time and consideration. I'd like to make it known that if these turbines go in close to my property, it'd be taking the wind out of my sails and crushing my dreams to build a homestead on land that has been in my family for 4 generations, hopefully 5. If these industrial wind turbines going at only 1,500 feet from my property, I won't in good conscience be able to build and allow my family to live there, knowing the health issues that they bring with them. According to the College of Family Physicians of Canada, there have been many reports of rural patients living in industrial wind turbine farms complaining about decreased quality of life, annoyance, stress, sleep disturbance, headaches, anxiety, depression, and decreased cognitive function. The suggested causes are turbine noise and infrasound, which is sounds below 20 hertz. The ground current and shadow flicker are also issues. A 2010 study of 2 industrial wind farms in Maine concluded that noise emissions from industrial wind turbines disturbed sleep, caused daytime sleepiness, and wreaked havoc on the mental health of residents living within 0.87 miles or 4,593 feet of these industrial wind turbines. It's no secret the mental and physical health are on decline in today's society, and I fear an industrial wind farm in beautiful Douglas County will just make matters worse for the residents, especially those living in the southwest corner where they're wanting to put these in. Based on the evidence I've provided, I'm calling for a 1 mile setback from non-participating landowners' property lines, which that's where we would fall in, is non-participating. Or at least a minimum of the 0.87 miles, 4,593 feet for the sake of physical and mental health of those who would be affected. One statistic I wanted to show you that I found astounding was according to the Global Wind Council, the whole world produced 743 gigawatts of electricity through wind turbines in 2021. To put that into perspective, that's only enough energy to power the state of Texas for a week. So might I stress that these were from the amount of power generated for 1 year. You don't have to think long to realize that no matter how many of these turbines, it will never be enough to keep up with our current energy consumption. Thank you for listening to what I have to say. And I hope I was able to show you all a new perspective. And I have copies if anyone would like one. Thank you.
Crystal Campbell?
I am completely devastated about the wind turbines coming to Douglas County. Just over a year ago, we bought land. I have had a dream of a home in the country with little kids running around in the backyard, laughing with no care in the world. A beautiful sunset, happiness, peace, nature, and beauty. Now there's a fear for my family, safety, and the residents around. I fear the threat of them falling down, incidents caused by natural disasters, health concerns, and the destruction of wildlife. Testimonials state ice has been known to be thrown 2,100 feet from turbine blades. The health of the community is priority. Wind turbines cause noise pollution, pulsating low frequency, sleep deprivation, headaches, migraines, vertigo, nausea, dizziness, pressure in the ears and the head, visual blurring, rapid heart rates, muscle joint pains, concentration memory problems, panic episodes, chronic fatigue, and irritability. According to East County Magazine, studies have shown birth defects, miscarriages, and stillbirths have been linked to turbines. Next to our land is a nature preserve. This will deter wildlife and kill countless birds. This will impact our future gravely and the next generations to come. For these reasons, I do not believe we should allow wind turbines in Douglas County. Setbacks need to be further than 2,500 feet. There should be a minimum of a 3-mile setback from property lines of non-participating landowners, churches, cemeteries, and nature preserves. For the safety of everyone in this community, we aren't going to build if these come in. No one will come to this county to build. You will not have the community and you will lose taxpayer dollars. For I am one of these people. I want to add that Lawrence does have a 3-mile setback, and I feel it right that we give everyone else that. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcia Pohl.
I just wanted to show you these wind turbine charts that came off the blade in Marshall County. These are just a few of them. They flew over 2,100 feet onto non-participating landowner property. And it was in a hayfield, an alfalfa field. Cattle cannot eat these without dying. They had to they couldn't even cut their hay for livestock, not any livestock, because these will get in their gut and they won't come out and they die. So the wind turbine ruined this farmer's income off of these fields, because you can cut hay off of alfalfa fields 3 or 4 times a year. And he couldn't do that because you can't get it all picked up. Okay, so I was going to talk to you about setbacks also. Blade failure happens. They disintegrate. In Marshall County, that's where this came from. Then that was in April. In July this year, there was a catastrophic fire in the 8 Points Wind Facility in Western Union, New York. It littered fiberglass debris all over a wide area as it burned. Now, this fiberglass debris burns, so when it comes down, it burns. Can you imagine having a fire like a turbine doing that out in our country as dry as it is? Before we could get our volunteer firefighters out there, it would be burning a lot of land and maybe homes. That's something to consider. In February of 2018, now I only have 3 minutes to talk, so I just pulled some of these up. There's a lot more. But in February of 2018, students were lucky to survive when a huge chunk of ice went through the roof of a college in the United States. That was in Gardner, Massachusetts. And the college leaders said they count themselves lucky that no one was killed. You may be setting turbines. You may not be setting turbines near a college, but in the future, you guys will be ruling on the regulations, and they will be near homes, churches, schools, and taking Lawrence, Baldwin, Lecompton, and Eudora populations out of the population. So we have just the rural area. We have on the average of 33 people per square mile in the rural area. The other thing was, studies have been done showing 3 different sizes of turbines. And some of them will throw 1,400 feet, 1,600 feet, and 1,900 feet. I'm thinking that we should have at least a 2,500 foot setback to help protect the safety of the people. There's also been turbines that throw ice on roads, highways. They've hit trucks. They've hit different things like that. So anyway, and Pratt County has 2,500 foot setbacks. So it can be done. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Robert Elder.
My name is Robert Elder. Our family owns a farm at 571 East 1000 Road in Baldwin City, Willow Springs Township. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. Last Friday, I was in Marshall County for work, and I could not help but notice the environmental destruction caused by the wind factories. Trees being ripped out, ditches being dug, holes being dug, wind turbines, transmission lines. They have made the beautiful countryside of Marshall County look like an industrial wasteland. I'm not exaggerating. As some of you know, the Oregon Trail runs diagonally across Marshall County. There are turbines right along the Oregon Trail. If you are following the auto tour route, you will have beautiful scenery until you hit Marshall County, and then you are bombarded with these eyesores. One of the most beautiful places in Marshall County is Alcove Spring. It is a watering stop on the Oregon Trail. For those of us of a certain vintage who played the Oregon Trail game, it's right by the Big Blue River crossing. Now, there is a hideously ugly transmission line running right past Alcove Spring. We are not just dealing with turbines, we're dealing with transmission lines. And both of those have completely destroyed the beauty of Marshall County and put a significant deleterious effect on the historical sites in the county. Now, we have the Santa Fe Trail in Southwest Douglas County and the historic Willow Springs only 1 mile from our farm. Please do not let the Santa Fe Trail and Willow Springs be marred and potentially destroyed, just like the Oregon Trail and Alcove Springs in Marshall County. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I believe we had some additional signups. I think Sue, I saw you sign up. I don't know who else is on the list.
I think I'm it. Hi, my name is Sue Herink. I live here in Lawrence. And here's my concern tonight. That as commissioners, you understand your role in the lives of your constituents, such as myself. You were elected to be a representative of us. You are not in your positions to rule over us and act as puppets of the state or federal government. I don't know how, I probably will come back again and again to try to encourage you to realize that the power comes from the bottom and it flows through you to the top. It does not come from the top, flowing through you and being imposed on us. It's important for you to understand that free people accept risk, trading freedom for a false sense of security offered by government agencies is a quick way to become controlled. Our history here in Lawrence, Kansas shows that freedom is paramount. The raid by Quantrell in 1863 is a testament to that. I have something for you here from Helen Keller, because she wrote something to live by. Here it is. Security is mostly a superstition. It does not exist in nature, nor do the children of men as a whole experience it. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. Life is either a daring adventure or nothing. That's the end of the quote from her. Those of us who understand what she's saying have a particular aversion to offers of security from a government. We choose to stand on our own, decide for ourselves how to live our lives, and do not need dictates because we accept risk as a part of life. Residents of the Douglas County, Kansas are counting on the three of you to act as voices for freedom as pressure increases in the coming weeks and months to mask, vax, or close businesses. We will not comply, and it's essential that you make our voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there others for general public comment?
My name is Dr. Justin Spees. There's still discussion in the media about mask mandates coming back here this fall and into the winter. So I'm here with my weekly reminder to you all to not bring them back. And this week I brought in 10 reasons to unmask permanently. Number one, visible facial expressions are an essential facet to human connection and communication. 2, masks fail to prevent the spread of germs. 3, wearing a mask for long periods is unhygienic and promotes sickness by trapping waste products and bodily fluids around the lips. That's just nasty for all you that wore masks out in public restrooms. You walked in there and had all those poop particles around your faces. It's so nasty. Number 4, I'm glad I didn't ever wear a mask. Number 4, prolonged mask usage causes psychological and emotional harm, especially in children and young adults. 5, masking inhibits a healthy intake of oxygen, essential to all life processes in the body, and forces the wearer to take shallow breaths. Matter of fact, I was just reading an article about that today about these researchers looked at how much masks restricted the breathing in children, and the mask did restrict breathing. And last I checked, anytime you restrict the breathing of a child, that's called child abuse. And I was telling you that all along. Y'all were abusing children with your mandates, and everyone that went along with it was abusing children. Number 6, masking contributes to medical apartheid by excluding those who can't comply due to health exemptions. Number 7, new scientific research is calling into question the very idea that germs are contagious. The field of natural hygiene has been demonstrating for over 150 years that infectious disease is more a factor of lifestyle than transmission of pathogenic particles. 8, wearing a mask encourages mass formation psychosis, a collective groupthink mentality that disconnects one from individual decision-making. Number 9, masking means to be afraid of one's neighbor. And then lastly, I have a daughter, and she has a beautiful face, and she never needs to cover it. And she never needs to cover it because you assholes tell her to.
Have any other general public comment? Do we have anyone online? All right, with that, we'll close general public comment and move into our regular agenda. So we're beginning with an NRA, and who do we have to present for us, Sarah?
We have Sam Camp with the City of Lawrence's Economic Development Office.
That's, sorry. There we go. Thanks, Sarah. Commissioner Kelly, I know you're online. Can you see everything okay? Okay. All right. Thanks. Good evening, Commissioners. Sam Camp, Economic Development Analyst with the City of Lawrence. Tonight, I'm here to present on the New Hampshire Lofts project located at 1000 New Hampshire Street. Just for frame of reference, it's the empty lot across from Maselli's across the street. This presentation will go very similar to the one that we gave a couple of weeks ago regarding the 700 New Hampshire project. So we'll go through the project itself, the request, analysis, considerations, and recommendations. So as an overview of the project, Flint Hills Holding Group is requesting economic development assistance to construct an affordable housing mixed-use commercial and residential project. Oh, sorry, I thought there was a wire that was connected. Yep, all right, thank you. A mixed-use residential and commercial project on the vacant lot located at 1000 New Hampshire Street. This project will be for seniors 55 plus and older. I know some people get kind of with the word senior and 55 plus, it doesn't really mix, but the age will be 55 plus. We'll get into it later, but the request is for a 15-year 95% NRA. The project will be complete new construction on the currently vacant lot of with approximately 15,000 square feet on the first floor for commercial space, approximately 54,000 square feet on the remaining floors of affordable housing residential, to include 6 studio units, 35 one-bedroom, 6 two-bedroom, 1 three-bedroom unit, as well as various community amenities. And on the screen, you'll see the breakdown of the AMIs between 30 and 60% AMI, and what that approximate cost breakdown would be for each unit type. So again, the incentive request is that 15-year 95% NRA rebate on the incremental value. So as a reminder from last time, the neighborhood revitalization area is a property tax rebate program. It applies to incremental valuation only. The base property value will be shielded throughout the life of the project, where the property owner continues to pay the property taxes on that base value and the remaining percentage not included in the rebate. So in this case, that would be that 5% that's not captured. So this is a brief graphic to kind of visualize that. The approximate base tax payment starting roughly in 2025, that $44,000 amount, that is for all 3 taxing jurisdictions. I believe in the technical report and then in the documents you received as part of the agenda packet, that it breaks down all of the county payments, the city, county, and school district payments. So we can get into that later if you would like. The approximate collected increment at 5% across all 3 taxing jurisdictions would be approximately $3,500 to $5,400 from year 1 all the way into year 15. And then the approximate rebate to the property owner would be approximately $68,000 to $100,000 starting from year 1 to year 15. So something unique about this project that we haven't seen in some more recent projects is that because it is a mixed use project, because it will have residential and commercial components to it, there will be different assessments on the property. So the current assessment on the value on the property is commercial. So when we're looking at the residential value, the base will be considered 0. So 95% of all residential value for that property will be given to the property owner as the rebate, where the city, county, and school district will collect the 5%. With the commercial valuation, the city, county, and school district will keep the base value, which you'll see is that the 16,000 that's on the screen, that represents the current base as well as the small increment from year 1. So that 5% for the county. So the city, county, and school district will at least retain the commercial valuation and that small 5%, while the remainder is rebated to the property owner. And these are, if you have any questions on this, we can answer that now before we move forward, or I'd be happy to answer questions at the end. Okay. And just as a reminder, these are some past projects, some past NRAs. Obviously, since last time, we've added the 700 New Hampshire project, the Old Borders bookstore on there. But if you'll see the Penn Street Lofts and the Ninedale Lofts project that are listed on there, they were from the same applicant, Flint Hills Development or Tony Kresnick, if you're familiar. And they were done in the exact same style. So first floor, either commercial or live work units, and then the remainder were affordable housing through LIHTC credits. So they will be affordable for a 30-year period. That's the general rule for LIHTC credit affordable housing projects.
You mind if I stop you here for a question on this slide?
Yes. Mhm.
So in the last NRA project that we saw, we were given kind of the breakdown of which of these were at 15 years, which were at 10 years, and generally the housing ones, like what's being proposed here, were at 15-year increment, 15-year NRA. I don't remember what the percentages were. Is 95% what is typically asked for from an applicant for like affordable housing project?
Yeah, so I can say for Penn Street Lofts and Ninedale Lofts, for Penn Street Lofts, that was 15 years at, I believe, 90%. Ninedale Lofts, I believe, was the same time frame and at that 90%, 85 to 90% level. So they've slowly, if they have, they've maybe slowly increased over time. I would maybe attribute that to the rise in development costs. Both Ninedale Lofts and Penn Street Lofts were considered kind of pre-pandemic or at the time the pandemic was happening, like 2020, early 2020. But now, several years later, we've still seen high and still increasing development costs. So I would attribute some of that to that as well. So through the cost benefit analysis, so if we're looking mainly at the county line, that's that 1.41 cost benefit ratio. With the IRB sales tax exemption that was considered and approved by the city, for the county, that would only be a $6,900, roughly $7,000 exemption. And then with the NRA, because the county and the school district have higher mill levies than the city, that's why you see a slightly higher value compared to the city. And then the city contributed additional affordable housing funds. So that's where you see a lot of these values come in. So I guess for the county, the total would be approximately $450,000 over a 15-year time period in support of this project.
One other quick question,
Mhm.
and just a clarification, but the city alone votes on the IRB, is that correct? That does not come to the county for a vote?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Although maybe it's considered by PERC, the Public Incentives Review Committee, where the county has a presence. There's a permanently available seat for a county representative. So there is some voice from the county and the school district on that. So some additional considerations. The project is in alignment with the city's economic development policy, the Lawrence Downtown Master Plan and the City of Lawrence Plan 2040, the comprehensive plan. It meets the city's goals of increasing adaptive reuse and providing more affordable housing. This project helps far exceed the city's short-term goal of 100 affordable rental units by 2023 and further supports the new goal of 1,500 units by 2028. This redevelopment also provides bringing back into productive use a historically underutilized parcel. So recommendations from city staff. Like stated previously, this project meets the requirements for the NRA, the IRB incentives, and achieves the city's goals. The Public Incentives Review Committee voted 6-0 for the motion to approve and recommend the NRA and IRB incentives. And then the City Commission most recently voted 5-0 for creating the NRA district and participation at 95%. So the actions and recommended next steps. Tonight, you're going to be considering your participation in the New Hampshire Lofts NRA once the area is established, and authorize the county administrator to execute the cooperative agreement with the other governing bodies to execute that work. I think at this point, I will mention Commissioner Reed. I think last time you had voiced some concern over the county staff and the administrative fee of about $500, and maybe that's maybe too little cost for maybe too much work that Sarah and Brad and all their staff take on. Since then, we have worked starting with this project and moving forward where all county involvement that requires an administrative fee will be with county staff's recommendation will be moving that fee up to $1,000 per year per project. And so after this, the school board will consider, and then the city will, it will go back to the city for the second reading of the NRA ordinance establishing the district. Okay, and it does look like the applicant is on Zoom. Would you prefer to take questions to me first and then speak with the applicant, or however you guys want
Are
to do
there
it?
any questions from fellow commissioners before we move to hear from the applicant?
Sam, this is Commissioner Kelly. I'm interested to know a little bit more about the senior housing and how, is that an aspiration, or if they don't fill it with seniors, can they fill it with other people? How is that done?
I think Tony Kresnick is online. I would maybe let him speak to that. I believe part of that requirement is tied to the LIHTC award that he was given. So I'd maybe let him speak to the requirements and his work towards filling that with 55 plus residents.
Okay.
Good question, Commissioner. Tony Kresnick here, Flint Hills Holdings Group. It is a hard restriction for seniors, at least what is referred to as quote unquote seniors, 55 years of age or older, or people with disabilities. The reason we chose this project here downtown Lawrence is frankly, the city in Douglas County has not seen a project with this restriction on it in quite some time. And with the projects that I own, down the street in the Warehouse Arts District, we have 149 units. Roughly a third of our tenants, any given lease would qualify for this product. And again, I asked city staff this a couple of months ago. We don't know of any product like this that has been built in Lawrence Douglas County area, in the greater downtown area, I should say, over the last 20 years. And that's why we decided to pursue this designation.
Thanks, Tony, for that. And if you could just, is the LIHTC award, is there specific reporting mechanisms, or how does that happen?
Sure. Yeah, there's incredible oversight on these projects with tax credits. There's the initial 15-year compliance period by IRS statute. Then there's an additional 15-year compliance period that we volunteered for, as frankly required by a lot of these states. So you have the state housing agency involved. You have the property management company involved that is responsible for all compliance work. And then in addition to that, you have the state and federal tax credit investors known as syndicators that are involved that oversee the compliance to make sure that there's no slip up in terms of age, in terms of income, in terms of too much rent being charged, or else they face the recapture of their tax credits. So you really have 3 or 4 different levels of oversight on these projects.
Sorry for the continued pestering questions. So if let's say 90% of it is leased to seniors, but 10% isn't, do you forfeit all the tax credits, or do you just that 10%?
You don't forfeit any tax credits because you're not going to lease it to somebody that's not 55 years of age or older. In theory, that unit would sit blank. What I can tell you is that there is such an incredible market for only 48, 49 units. We're not going to have issues leasing this. We will immediately be pursuing additional phases if the market study proves, and with our direct experience continues to prove out just a few blocks away.
Okay, thank you.
I know, Mr. Kernich, we've already asked a few questions. Do you have a presentation or anything you'd like to share with us as the applicant?
No, a lot of the information that Sam presented came from us. We usually just, at least in the past, we've, stated, what the project is, why it is, as I've already done, and I'm here for any questions. I did want to just make one point of clarification. This was before Sam's time, but whether or not, in other communities, they have tax abatements or they have property tax TIFs. Here in the state of Kansas for affordable housing projects, the NRA or the NRP program, as it's called in some communities, works very well. I'd say that the last 8 to 10 projects that I have worked on either required a 95% tax rebate or a 100% TIF. And the reason it is for the full 15 years is because that's how long the tax credit investor is in the projects. And that's the most efficient way for the tax credit investor to manage the sustainability, the economic sustainability of the project.
I have a couple of questions about the project, if you don't mind, Tony. Is this the first project of these that you've done that is age restricted to 55 and over?
It is not. We've done 1, 2, 3, a total of 5.
And how many units, just roughly, do you have with that restriction already?
I'm gonna guess it's about 120 total.
Okay. I'm just curious, I assume these are independent living. Are there any efforts to put in some kind of a community building type services or spaces for community programs that are specifically targeted to a population, since it's not just all mixed ages, but there's a specific target population?
Yeah, and in each one of our projects, we have community rooms. We have free access to Wi-Fi in the community room. We have a workout facility. We have obviously common laundry on site so that the tenants don't need to leave. On this project, we have a rooftop deck, very similar to Penn Street Lofts for anybody that's seen that. We actually have a bike rack included in the project. And then we also have a first floor green space or garden area, if you will, that is currently designed to be on the north side of the building.
Another question, this might actually be for Sam. There is a difference between the residential portion of the property, which because there hasn't been residential there before, that value is starting at 0 versus the commercial part of it, because it is currently zoned as commercial property where that is starting at the base of what, 44,000 for taxes. How does that parking portion of that structure is in the mixed use? Does the parking count as residential or does it count as commercial in that calculation?
In terms of like, how is the parking?
How are the taxes figured on that? The percentage, does that go into the residential percentage or into the commercial percentage?
We have Brad Eldridge here, if he can maybe speak to that. I'm not sure exactly how parking usually works out. I apologize.
Thank you, Brad, for taking questions on the fly.
Problem. The value of the parking section would be baked into the residential component. The parking requirements by the city, and I'd have to take a look at how they're allocated between the residential and commercial portions, but it's baked in. It's not isolated out with a separate value.
So it's part of that residential valuation.
It'd be
for
baked
tax
into the resident,
purposes.
because most of that building would be that situation. So
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any other questions for either Brad or Tony before we open for public comment? Okay, thank you very much. So this is a regular agenda item. Would anyone like to make public comment on this item? Anyone here in person? And seeing none, do we have anyone online? No? All right, with that, we'll close the public comment portion and bring it back to the commission for discussion, conversation, or motions.
This is Commissioner Reed. I don't have much to say other than I'm supportive of this because it's affordable housing units and it's infill. And yeah, I think the project makes sense and is good for NRA, and happy to see that LIHTC dollars or that it was a project accepted by LIHTC. Happy to make a
This
motion
commission-
if there's, oh, go ahead, Commissioner
Yeah,
Kelly.
this Commissioner Kelly, I'd just say I'm very supportive of this. I really appreciate the developer bringing in multiple funding streams to the project, and know that the demand is very high for this. Our own Douglas County needs assessment indicated the same.
Also very supportive of any efforts towards senior housing and affordable housing. How many times did I say senior housing last week? So I'm very much appreciative of the project. I would have liked to have seen an 85% NRA on this, so that we're capturing kind of just as that, even if that property had not developed, the increase over time of that property. But I recognize that this is a high value for our community, so it's probably worth taking something for that. I think it's worth noting for the community that these are not dollars that are given. These are, it's a portion of the increased tax value with the new development on it that we would either capture or not capture, in which case we're capturing an additional 5% of that boost, and then 95% for that period of 15 years is abated, and then it comes onto the tax rolls in full at 15 years. So Sam, feel free to correct me if I say anything incorrect on that, but that's something we hear about in the community about, you know, giving dollars away. And these are dollars that we wouldn't have without a project. We're capturing an additional portion. And then after 15 years, we capture the entire value of that back onto our tax rolls. So it is a win for Douglas County, in addition to the fact that the project is something much needed here. Commissioners, any other comments?
That's Commissioner Reed again. I move to approve the county participation in a 15-year, 95% neighborhood revitalization area for Flint Hills Holdings Group to develop a mixed-use affordable senior housing building at approximately 1000 New Hampshire Street, and authorize the county administrator to execute a cooperative agreement with the city of Lawrence, Douglas County, and USD 497 for the administration of duties related to the 1000 New Hampshire neighborhood revitalization area.
This is Commissioner Kelly, second.
Moved in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Thank you. We move on to a planning item. It's a conditional use permit for equipment storage is up for consideration. So looks like we have Sandy Day. Thank you, Sandy.
Good evening, Commissioners. Sandy Day, Planning Office. This item comes back to you from our previous conversation back in June. Since we last talked, I believe a couple of things have happened. One was that you were able to make a determination on the temporary business that was associated with this property. Following our last meeting, also, the Public Works Director went out to review the site. One of the topics of consideration were the number of driveways, and also talked with the applicant about closing one of the two driveways. And the conclusion of that was that the northern driveway, or the existing drive that was associated with the original residence, would be the one that would be closed. The new driveway that has more recently been constructed would be the driveway that remains. So that is a task on the applicant's to-do list to go ahead and get that work done for the driveway. The other thing that we did since we have met is to revise the conditions of approval following the discussion that we had with this board in the end of June. I'd just like to bring your attention to a couple of items. If you look in your packet, in the resolution, provision of a note on the plan, 1B, and this is intended to clarify the requirements about open space and screening of the property, that the existing trees would be used to maintain screening for the site. Any loss of those trees or removal of those trees would require the applicant to plant new trees. So we tried to make that a clarifying element in the resolution. We also changed some language regarding the driveways. I had erroneously made a reference in the resolution about referencing the Evergy access, given that this is a separate project, but the language now reads only one driveway access is permitted for the property generally located at the address. The property owner shall remove the northern entrance per the approval of the Public Works Director of Public Works in accordance with the adopted county access management regulations. The other condition that we added, and again, this was related to that discussion, was about the hours of operation. So we did add that to the resolution, that it would be restricted from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it would be up to the applicant to work with inside the boundary of those hours. Staff did have a communication. A property owner has indicated concern about the applicant's parking activity. That is reflected in the ordinance as well, that parking for the business activity is limited to that space that was shown on the site plan between the accessory structure that will be used for equipment storage and the residence. So it's in that kind of protected screened area. Vehicular parking of equipment or vehicles associated with the business should not be occurring in front of that accessory structure. There seems to be maybe some miscommunication or misunderstanding. I have tried to explain that to the applicant, so I believe they're aware of what's going on. They've got some grading and pad side work to get finished up, and then they will be able to make use of the intended parking area that's shown on the site plan. I'm happy to answer any questions. I believe the applicant is here this evening if you have questions of them.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for Sandy before we hear from the applicant? Right. Okay. Thank you. We have the applicant here.
Hello, I'm Jared Konechny, and this is Chris Feldhausen. We are the applicants for the CUP permit.
We may end up having questions for you, so
Absolutely, sure.
I will turn to my fellow commissioners. Do we have any questions before public comment, or do you want to save those for after? You can have a seat for a moment and we will see if we have any public comment on this item.
Thank you.
Would any member of the public like to come forward and speak on this item? No one online? All right, that will close the public comment portion and bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Commissioner Reed, I just want to, I feel like the deferment and the time helped get a little bit of clarity on some things. And so I feel more settled with this and comfortable with where things are, and also glad to know definitively from the county engineer which driveway is going to stay and which one's going to go, and that there's a plan in progress for that.
I don't have any comments. I'm happy to make a motion if commissioners are ready.
Go ahead.
We are.
Make a motion to approve conditional use permit CUP 23-00158 for equipment storage use located at 1805 East 200 Road, based on the findings presented, subject to the conditions listed in the resolution, and adopt the resolution.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. brings us to a conversation of the Douglas County Lived Experience Compensation Policy. And would I be right that maybe this is Jill to present?
Good evening, Commissioners. I've given you a draft policy and a authorizing resolution that's required for our finance policies to establish a cash box. The cash box is associated with the administration of a proposed lived experience compensation policy. Staff has been working in consultation with partners internally and externally to develop this policy and look at comparable policies in public and private organizations around the country, trying to find something that best meets the needs of what we have today in Douglas County. Issues related to compensating individuals with lived experience are not new in Douglas County. They were specifically mentioned in the recommendations from the Corporation for Supportive Housing and the KU Center for Public Partnerships and Research when they did the needs assessments for our community in 2022 on ways to more authentically engage our community members that are experiencing homelessness. But there has been a designated spot on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for a good amount of time for an individual with lived experience to be one of the members of that council per the bylaws. So we have been doing that. So again, it's not new to our work, but the policy is a mechanism that we needed to have in place to operationalize what this looks like in a more authentic way, to address the barriers that individuals face in participating in policy and budget decisions, opportunities for the design and development of programs and services. And the best example that's relevant to the work that I've been engaged in the past couple of years has been the work of developing a strategic plan to address housing and homelessness in Douglas County. We had some real direct feedback in the listening sessions this past spring, compelling us to engage our individuals with lived experience. And we'd like to be able to do that. But again, we'd like to be able to do that in a way that meets folks where they are, compensates them for their time and their expertise, and recognizes what is at times an emotional and traumatic experience for them to discuss with us what they've experienced and opportunities that we can design a different solution. So did my best to kind of hit the high points in the cover memo. You've got a lot of attachments, the backup material. County staff also work closely with, our county admin staff also work closely with the clerk's office to make sure we were navigating things like, avoiding IRS hurdles in terms of, that's why that 599 mark is there. While we don't anticipate exceeding that with any of the ways that we will operationalize this policy. And I'm happy to talk about that in greater detail in terms of how we will move forward after today. But, having that 599 threshold is important just because that's where it becomes reportable, and it might be more of a pain for folks to be able to have to report that on their taxes. So we did all this in very close consultation with all the right folks, with a lot of check-ins with the county administrator and with some of our advisory groups as well. I'm happy to stand for questions.
Commissioners, do you have any questions? I guess I just have a basic question in terms of lived experience, because everyone, of course, brings some lived experience to boards, and that's what makes them valuable. And I do recognize, because I work with a lot of clients, especially in the Black community in urban Kansas City, a lot of clients of mine that are now expected to they're being asked by governments and private businesses to advise them on equity issues. These are all great, but they're not compensated for their time, and it is a bit of an additional trauma to have to share than educating like what their reality has been and why it needs to be forward. So I recognize the need. I'm just questioning, we're just wondering, what's the thought process behind which lived experiences fall under compensation and which do not?
So the way that the policy is written is that on one hand, at the, the outset of the way that it's framed in the opening, it can be interpreted it could be taken broadly. And so I think there's room to grow in this. But we're very specific in terms of where we see it applying in the Table 1 eligible boards and committees. So we've identified the CJCC, the Douglas County Food Policy Council, the Entrepreneurship Community E3 Cities Initiative through the E-Community, and the Housing and Homelessness Stakeholder Groups. Those were the 4 immediate areas that we can point to, like with CJCC, the bylaws. Food Policy Council, while I don't believe it's in their bylaws, they have 2 designated spaces on there that are intended to be reflective of community members or stakeholders that face barriers, and in terms of navigating the food system and access to healthy foods and entrepreneurship opportunities. And then the work of the E3 cities is intentionally talking about how we're compensating individuals to do that entrepreneurship development. And then our homelessness and housing stakeholder group, I mentioned some of the recommendations that we're operationalizing. Those were the ones that we could immediately think, this is what we could apply this to now. But I think we've written the policy in a way that if the commission wanted to expand it to some other initiatives, we could do that. But these were the ones that we could immediately point to that we're actively engaged in work today, that lived experience perspectives would provide valuable input.
And Commissioner, if I could add on, this will be specifically for positions that are designated to be served as individuals with lived experience. So, many of us, like you say, bring pieces of lived experience to a variety of positions. But if you happen to be the county administrator and I am on the board, if I have lived experience elsewhere but I'm in the position as county administrator, then therefore I'm not in that position and would not be eligible for the compensation. If that helps to clarify it, is that it's we're specifically designating the position. How it's worked on CJCC in the past is we've accepted letters of interest when we've had vacancies, and they serve a term, and then, based off that, it's specifically on that. And the CJCC, it's lived experience in the criminal justice system, or I believe it's with the criminal justice system. And so they would need to have that kind of experience and submit a letter of interest.
And I think that the example with the experience with CJCC gives an example of kind of both sides of the coin and how this could be applied. The individual that's serving in that position now is performing that role and also being compensated for that as part of her full-time position. Previously, that's not been the case. And the previous CJCC director looked at, ways that we could address some of the barriers for that individual participating, like helping with a cell phone, things like that. And those are things that we can still have access to doing. But this gives us a little more flexibility that somebody may just, a cash payment of $25 for attending a meeting may be a better way to ensure that somebody can address the barriers that they have to coming to a meeting.
And so the opposite of that, so in the particular situation with the CJCC right now, since that individual is serving as a part of their position responsibilities, they're being paid to attend, they will not be eligible for this. So anyone that is a part of their job responsibilities is appointed to a council will not be eligible.
I recognize that on one hand, it feels like a privilege to serve on a committee and speak into your community. It's also that it's very much based on privilege who gets to be there and speak into your community because of just time availability and other barriers. I mean, even just the number of people who serve on committees that have, kids at home without another spouse to help, like those, there's just a lot of barriers. So I recognize that, and I'm really glad to see the policy and have the conversation, because I hear about this through other streams in my life. Is there the ability for a person who's eligible for this to also opt out and say that is not something that feels honoring to me?
Yes. So when I was talking to Sarah about, what would next steps look like, I was also talking to Gabby Sprague earlier today as a member of the Housing and Homelessness Stakeholder Group. So what it would look like, for our stakeholder group moving forward will be that, we'll come up with a plan for where we will begin to integrate folks with lived experience into our organizational structure. So, whether that's having one or two people on the different focus areas or an advisory group that is specific to the equity inclusion work group, we'll come up with a proposal. We'll report that back to Sarah, and then we'll have something that we can make available to folks. So, hey, thanks for joining. Just so you know, this is available to you if you'd like to utilize it. If you don't want to, that's great. But if you do, here are all the documents. Here's what I need you to sign. And there aren't a lot of documents, but here's what it entails and here's how to go about it. With CJCC, it would be a part of, it wouldn't apply in the current situation like we talked about, but when a new person comes on, if they are eligible, that would be a matter of Katie saying, hey, this is available if you'd like to opt into it. But right now, they opt out of it. So I think we do want to make it an intentional conversation for folks that it's available to you and opt into it is how we thought about it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Any motions? Oh, shall we? Can we take public comment? Is there anyone in the room who would like to give public comment on this issue? Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, Gene Dorsey, Lawrence, Kansas. I guess I have more questions and comments. The first would be, how many people have we asked to serve on these boards who said they couldn't serve unless they were paid money? Secondly, the write-up just specifies that there's enough money available in 2023 and 2024. What is the total amount of money that we think we're going to spend on this? Thirdly, how is the hourly rate of $50 come up with? That's a rate that would equate to somebody making $104,000 a year. I got some information from administration today, and I got the impression it was modeled after Sacramento, California's program. And that city has a budget of 1.5 billion with a B, and they spend $41 million a year on homeless. And they have a homeless facility that totals 1,100 beds. And I'm not sure if they're offering 50 is the right amount for us if we scale it down. So those are my questions. Thank you.
Any other public comment here in the chamber? Anyone online? With that, will close public comment, bring it back to the commission. Any other thoughts to share or questions?
I just wanted to address that the policy was not the Sacramento example. It was referenced as an example of how it's being utilized in other communities to engage folks with lived experience. It's not a model. I think there's a lot of models all over the country of what it looks like, and they all look a little different depending on what your community wants and needs.
And Joe, by my count, it's probably somewhere around 8 people between these 4. Yeah, it's a pretty small number. So, and I'd be glad for you to circle back with us as that unfolds too.
Yeah, I'm happy to keep you updated. And like I said, the county administrator will be updated throughout this. The process is managed by the county administrator's office. And, if it becomes too burdensome for us, then we'll cross that bridge, but we will absolutely keep you updated.
I'll just add a comment that I think, $50 an hour when thought of in the context of a full-time job is significant, but $50 an hour for occasional periodic engagement, usually in a group or around a table full of other people who are being paid there as part of their professional jobs, is fair in my mind. And so I was glad to see that it was not a small number and that we were not undervaluing what those positions bring to our boards, and that we are trying to be more intentional about being accessible for more people in the community to really participate in their community government and shaping of policy. So I'm very excited about this. I also just want to give as Jill mentioned earlier, like this has been a conversation in the works for a long time. And so I really appreciate Jill's tenacity in continuing to do the research and look at different models and think about what makes sense here, at least as a starting place. In our community and the size and structure that we've got with our boards. So, and also give a little shout out to former Commissioner Portillo, who is always a really big proponent from day one of figuring out how we compensate people for bringing their experiences and that labor of love really to community work when it's not a part of their professional job. So just excited to have this on the agenda today and to be able to make a motion to approve it. If or Commissioner Kelly, I see you're unmuted, so I'll let you talk first.
Yeah, Jill, this is a question for Jill that just sort of came up with Commissioner Reed's comments. The compensation is just for the meeting. There's also prep work that needs to be done prior to a meeting, right? So this isn't like an hourly payment. This is for all that prep work. This is for all the time they spend in the community listening to others. Am I correct in that?
You're correct. That is the primary reason why there's a differentiation between the $25 and the $50. The $25 is to attend a meeting. $50 is to participate in a board meeting. The board meeting presumes that being a board member, as you said, Commissioner Kelly, there is work that is done to prepare for that meeting and associated with that to fulfill the obligations of being a board member.
I would also add that for some of us that do not live close to wherever those board meetings are occurring, that a 1 hour board meeting is a 2 hour commitment and $50 is about what would pay a babysitter. So it is not an excessive amount for what's being asked. So thank you.
Commissioner Reed again, very excitedly move to approve the Douglas County Lived Experience Compensation Policy and authorize a resolution to establish a cash box for the county administrator's office.
Commissioner Kelly, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you all. And that concludes our regular agenda. And then we have, we'll take it back to Sarah for administrative appointments and notes.
Thanks, commissioners. You have my memo in the packet. Do want to note that we added a new date to it. I'm trying to pull it up. That we have the Public Works has set the date for the annual township meeting. So commissioners are certainly invited to attend that. So just let us know if you plan to attend. The rest of it looks pretty similar to what you've seen in previous weeks. I did get some information very late in the day that I want to share with the commission because we're going to start having impacts before we meet again. We're getting ready. Next week, we'll begin work on the waterproofing project for this building. The first phase of this will impact the 1 hour parking lot to the south of this building is the first phase. So I hope to be able to put a whole bunch of details out to employees and the public tomorrow. And so we'll share it with the media then, and then hopefully we can get the word out and we will post signs. But the first part of the project will start next week and it will impact that parking lot through mid-October. Then phase 2 will be the western half of the building, kind of curving around both to the south and to the north of the building, but primarily the western side. So that'll start then mid-October and go through the end of the year. The entrances will remain open. All current entrances to the building will remain open during construction. And then we'll be in 2024 when we work on the east side of the building. So I'll have more details in your memo next week, but I wanted to let you know while I had you that we're finally getting ready to get going. That's all I have, commissioners.
That'll be an exciting time.
Getting ready to get going sounds really awkward. We're ready to proceed next week.
Do definitely count me in for the township meeting.
Great.
Anything else, commissioners?
Just a calendar item. I don't know if others are attending the Taste of Lawrence, which is tomorrow, to see if we need to notice that. Maybe
Not
not.
me. It is possible that I might be there. It's unknown yet, but thank you for mentioning that one.
Okay.
Anything else? All right. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.